To demonstrate how glazing works, I'm gonna do a quick painting of just a simple object. I'm gonna just paint an apple for this example. So I've watered down my cadmium red paint and I'm applying my first glaze. I'm just outlining the shape of the apple and filling it in. As you can see, the first glaze doesn't really establish a lot of depth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for the paint to dry. And remember, each glaze consists of very little pigment and a lot of water. Now that the paper is dry, I'm going to add my second glaze. I've mixed in a small amount of burnt umber and water to the cadmium red this time to help paint in the shadows. I'm trying to stay away from areas where the apple catches light because I want to keep the white of the paper as the highlights. Again, I'm going to wait about 5 to 10 minutes for this to dry. Now for glaze number 3, I'm going to just repeat the same steps I did before. I'm going to slowly add value to build form. You can start to see kind of the volume of the apple forming. It's okay too if there's a weird background texture happening. That's because the layers that I'll add on top of this will blend most of it out, so it won't be as noticeable. I try to be loose with the handling of the brush and put my wrists in it. Using the belly and rotating my brush, I'm able to vary the paint edges from having a smooth edge for areas where the highlights are, and then a hard edge for kind of the outline of the apple. It's starting to look a little muddy right now because I'm using mostly burnt umber and cadmium red. So I'm going to mix in a small amount of cadmium yellow to the red to give it some dimension. Remember that the last washes you apply are going to influence the colors the most. So as you can see, the leaf is mostly brown, so I'm going to add a layer of forest green to give it some color, and almost instantly you can't really see much of the brown underpainting, but rather you have a more bodied green because it's mixing with that brown that's underneath. I'm going to paint the edges of the leaf with a green gold to kind of give it some liveliness and punch. I do the same with the edges of the apple, and by using a saturated color for the edges, it'll make the painting more realistic and pop. I can probably keep going and adding maybe 20 more glazes on top of this to give it the full dimension that it needs. So this is basically how I paint in isolated thin washes of acrylic.